For more than a decade, Netflix was the undisputed king of streaming. It replaced video rental stores. It disrupted cable television. And it completely changed how the world watches movies and TV. At its peak, Netflix looked unstoppable. Millions of new users were joining every single month. Its original shows dominated pop culture, and its stock price skyrocketed. But today, something has changed. Netflix is facing a new reality, one where its biggest advantage has disappeared. And for the first time in years, the company is fighting to stay ahead, because the streaming war has officially begun. Chapter 1. The birth of Netflix. Netflix didn't start as a streaming service. Back in 1997, the company launched as a DVD rental business. At the time, renting movies meant driving to a store like Blockbuster, hoping the movie you wanted was available. Netflix introduced a much simpler idea. Instead of visiting a store, customers could order DVDs online and receive them through the mail. After watching the movie, they simply returned it using a prepaid envelope. No late fees, no store visits, no hassle. It was a small innovation, but it changed the entire rental industry. Within a few years, Netflix began growing rapidly, while traditional rental chains struggled to keep up. Then, in 2007, Netflix made a decision that would change entertainment forever. They introduced online streaming. Suddenly, users could watch movies instantly on their computers. No DVDs, no waiting, just press play. At the time, the technology seemed almost futuristic, but Netflix was betting that internet speeds would improve and streaming would eventually replace physical media. And they were right. Chapter 2. The Golden Age. By the early 2000s, Netflix had become the dominant force in streaming. Millions of households were subscribing every year. But the company had another problem. Most of the movies and shows on Netflix weren't actually owned by Netflix. They were licensed from other studios, and those deals could disappear at any moment. So Netflix made a bold decision. Instead of only distributing content, they would start creating their own shows. In 2013, Netflix released House of Cards. It was their first major original series, and it was a massive success. Soon after came other hits like Stranger Things, Narcos, Orange is the New Black. These shows proved that Netflix could compete directly with Hollywood studios. And more importantly, it gave Netflix something competitors didn't have: exclusive content. By the mid-2000s, Netflix had become more than a streaming service. It had become a global entertainment powerhouse. Chapter 3. The streaming war. But Netflix's success created a new problem. Every major media company realized that streaming was the future, and they all wanted a piece of the market. Disney launched Disney+, Warner Brothers launched HBO Max, Apple launched Apple TV+, Amazon expanded Prime Video. Suddenly, Netflix was no longer competing with small startups. It was competing with the biggest entertainment companies in the world. And these companies had something Netflix didn't: massive content libraries. Disney owned Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, and decades of classic films. Warner Brothers owned HBO, DC, and one of the largest film catalogs ever created. And as these companies launched their own streaming platforms, something critical began to happen. They started pulling their content off Netflix. Shows that once defined Netflix started disappearing. Friends left. The Office left. Marvel movies disappeared. Netflix was slowly losing the licensed content that helped build its platform. Chapter 4. The Content Arms Race. To survive, Netflix had to replace that content with its own originals, and that meant spending huge amounts of money. Today, Netflix spends over $17 billion every year on content production. That's more than many traditional movie studios. But creating hit shows isn't easy. For every global success like Stranger Things or Squid Game, there are dozens of expensive projects that fail to attract audiences. Many shows are canceled after just one season. Some disappear without anyone even noticing. This creates a massive financial risk because Netflix must constantly produce new content just to keep subscribers interested. Unlike traditional TV networks that can rely on decades of existing content, Netflix has to keep feeding the machine. And the machine is extremely expensive. Chapter 5: The Subscriber Problem. Another warning sign for Netflix is slowing subscriber growth. In the early years, Netflix was growing at an incredible pace. Every year, millions of new users joined the platform. But eventually, growth began to slow. In many developed countries, most households that want streaming already have it. And now there are multiple platforms competing for attention. Instead of subscribing to just one service, many users now rotate between platforms. They subscribe to one service for a month, watch the shows they want, then cancel and move to another. This behavior makes it much harder for Netflix to maintain long-term subscribers, and it creates a constant battle for attention. Chapter 6: Password Sharing. Netflix also faced another challenge: password sharing. For years, the company ignored the issue. Even Netflix executives joked about it on social media. But the scale of the problem became enormous. Millions of people were watching Netflix without paying. Eventually, Netflix decided to crack down. The company introduced new rules that limited account sharing across households. Users now had to pay extra if they wanted to share their accounts with people outside their home. This strategy helped increase revenue, but it also annoyed many customers. Some users canceled their subscriptions entirely. Others moved to competing platforms. Chapter 7: The Changing Streaming Industry. The biggest challenge Netflix faces today isn't just competition. It's the changing economics of streaming itself. For years, companies were willing to lose money in order to grow their platforms. Streaming was treated like a race for subscribers. But now investors are demanding something different: profit. Many streaming services are raising prices, introducing advertisements, and cutting back on spending. Netflix has already introduced an ad-supported subscription tier in many markets. This would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. The industry is slowly shifting away from unlimited spending toward more sustainable business models. And that transition could reshape the entire streaming landscape. Conclusion: Netflix isn't going away anytime soon. It still has hundreds of millions of subscribers around the world, and it continues to produce some of the most popular shows on the internet. But the environment that allowed Netflix to dominate streaming has completely changed. Competition is stronger than ever, content is more expensive than ever, and audiences have more choices than ever. The company that once disrupted the entertainment industry is now fighting to defend its position, because the streaming war has only just begun, and the next decade will determine whether Netflix remains the king or becomes just another streaming service.